Hello friend, my name is Derek Harder, and in this video we're going to be going over setting up your development environment in order so you can do assignments for basically Python programming assignments for classes here at East Texas A&M University. So in this one I'm basically going to go over real quickly the setup and configuration of different things. So let me jump back real quickly to... Let me look at, before I get into this, just a little word about kind of what you need. So you really need to have your own computer or laptop that, that you own. So it needs to be so that you can install things on it. You have to have administrator privileges on this. So Windows, macOS, or Linux will work. To tell you the truth, it might be possible to use it like an Android or something. I wouldn't recommend that. So there'll be some difficulties with that. So any computer relatively recent, in fact, the resource requirements are pretty modest to run Python for these classes, so to do Python programming assignments. So it really doesn't have to be all that new. If it's built in the 2020s or maybe even a little bit older, you'll probably be fine. If it has Windows 10 or 11, if it has Mac OS going back to I don't know the Mac OS versions, but like in the 2020s, I think it's like Mac OS version 11 or something, you should be fine. 11, 12, 13 or so, or Linux. This should work on like ARM-based Windows or Intel AMD-based Windows. It should work on on the new Mac Silicon, which is ARM-based, M1, M2, M3, or on the older Intel architecture Mac OSs. Okay, so we have those. So really finding a computer to use shouldn't be a problem. And also, in fact, I don't think resource requirements will be too much of an issue either if you're just doing Python programming assignments. So 4 gigabytes of memory, you really need that just to run, like a Windows 10 or something, right? So, so I don't know for any modern computer, if you're running a Windows 10 or a more recent version of Mac OS, you'd be able to do anything if it had less than 4 gigabytes of memory. Installing, all we need to install is Python and like some Git tools, Git and SSH tools in order to do these assignments. So it's probably actually a lot less than 5 gigabytes. Of course, you might need more for your actual assignment data and stuff, but just to actually install Python and the Git tools, there's not a whole lot you need for those. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm going to first just show installing a Python interpreter and then the Git tools and a little bit of basic setup of Git on a Windows system. And then I'm going to try and jump over. I've got a little Mac OS system set up, so I'll try and jump over to the Mac OS system and show the same kind of things for a Mac OS system. Okay, so like I mentioned, you need to install a Python interpreter. That'll probably be the first thing you ought to go ahead and do. For Windows, so if you're on a Windows OS system, for any operating system you might be on, there's lots of options for getting Python installed. I'm going to recommend on Windows that you just go ahead and use the official python.org download and package manager. Anaconda is also a good choice. If you already have a Python installed, you might be able to just use the Python that you already have installed. And you might have some Python versions installed for other software packages and things. But yeah, for class assignments, you need to make sure you're using Python version 3. Okay, so this applies actually to everybody here that might be watching this video, Mac or Windows, Windows or Mac operating systems. Right now, as I'm recording this, we're at version 3.14, so you probably should be using that or newer. If you are doing a class like in 2026, maybe 3.12 or 13 would be fine. Maybe back to 3.11, but you probably want to get the most recent version if you can. Okay, so here I am in a cleanly installed, like it's a Windows 10 environment here. So this video is really in the companion to the written instructions on this repository here, ETMU classes Python Git. I'll put links to all these things in the description for this video here. Okay, so we're going to start by installing a Python interpreter. Like I said, there's many options you could do for this, but we'll just go ahead and download it. I've already downloaded it, but we'll download it from python.org. And like I was mentioning, you need to be using a Python 3. In 2026, when I'm recording this, you don't really want to be using like 3.10 or anything older. 3.11 might be okay, but you probably, at this point in time, should be using 3.14, or if you're watching this video later, maybe even a newer version, 3.14. Okay, so you can go ahead and download this for here. Like I said, I already downloaded it. This is a standard Windows installer. Before, in my instructions here, after we talk about installing for Windows and macOS, there's some post-install checks. You might want to check and see if you have any particular Python versions. And before I jump into looking at a command line, let me mention, if you've never used a command line tool, there's a couple of links down here at the bottom. And again, I'll also put these in my video about like how to open a command prompt in Windows. I just usually just open the start menu and do a search. So I just search for like command or terminal would probably bring it up too. And I usually just, since I personally use terminals quite a bit, I usually just right click on that and pin it to my taskbar, so I have it so I can always open it there. Okay, so there is also like a PowerShell in Windows. I wouldn't recommend using that unless you're already familiar with using PowerShell. So the basic command prompt, it used to be the old DOS command prompt. It is not the same as like Linux terminal, but it's the most similar. Okay, so if you bring up a command prompt, notice my current directory is here in a users directory from the C drive. I'm logged in as a user called ETAMU student. And you can use the where command like is discussed here. If I can go back up to where we were talking about installing the Python interpreter. This will check along your current system path to see if there's a program called Python or not already installed on your system. Okay, so whenever you're using a command line terminal like this, there's a special environment variable that contains places that are searched to see if there's a program if you try and run it. So if I ask for Python, so what I found out is on a clean install of Windows, there is actually a something on the path called python.exe. But if you run that, this is really just a stub. It'll bring up the Microsoft Store. So this is another way you could probably install Python. I probably don't recommend installing it from here, so I'm not certain which version the one from the Windows Store will end up bringing up for you. But just be aware, you will see something on there, but that's not a real Python interpreter. We don't have that yet. So I already downloaded the installer. I'll go ahead and start it. So I might pause here. This won't take very long. So once it comes up, we can say go ahead and install. It does pop up a terminal here to actually ask you some questions. You can usually just accept the defaults for all this, although we can go ahead and allow it to update the limits. We want to go ahead and give it permissions to make these changes. You do want to make certain that the Python is in your path here. So make certain you answer yes to that one. You probably don't need CPython, but it won't hurt to have it. I'm going to actually do no just to make certain my statement about not needing that. So CPython is just another tool, but we probably wouldn't usually need it for a class that's doing regular Python programming. I don't want to view the help there. Okay, so that should basically be it to get if you want to use the standard python.org installer to get Python installed. So if you had a terminal open, make certain that you close it off, because those updates to the path won't be seen if you had a terminal open before you started the installer. Okay, so I'll make certain I restart a new command prompt, and we'll check again. Okay, so you should see that the new Python is on your path, and I'm not seeing that there, so I'm going to check something here real quickly to see if that got installed or not. Okay, yeah, sorry about that. So I learned something new. So even though I think that was still the same path as what I showed before, but it really didn't get installed. So I guess the prereq I just showed you does install it in the same place where it has that stub. Okay, so when I tried and when I actually here, I had my video paused when I tried this out to check it out. But so if you want to run your Python interpreter, if you see a Python interpreter on your path, you can try it and run it, right? So this will actually start a interactive session, right? So I'm actually either it's exit or it is Control D is the keyboard shortcut. So that's the same on Windows and on macOS and Linux. So I thought it used to be different, but Control D lets you exit from the interactive section. Okay, so that's really it. That's all you need, and it is a good idea to make certain that you do have a valid Python interpreter on your path. Right, so if you use that where command from a command prompt or a terminal, you should be able to find, here's what I was expecting. So yeah, after the first time I run it, it shows up in two places. So there's still that stub, but it is working here. So I don't know, the stub probably is now just a link to the actual local installed version of Python.exe. Okay? So a quick final note on getting Python up. If you look in your start menu, you will see now from the standard python.org installation that you have a couple things. If you need to install new packages in your system-wide Python, you can probably use the install manager. If you're doing classes with this, we'll probably cover that in other parts of the class. These things here, like this one, will basically should open up a terminal, the same thing kind of that I did, but it just directly puts you into a interactive session. And if you exit out, it just closes it. But that's the same as opening up a command prompt and starting an interactive session yourself. Right? And the standard python.org installer will also give you an IDLE, an idle, which is kind of like a mini IDE, integrated development environment. And that's another thing also that we might cover in a class like this that you might be using this for. Okay. All right, so with that, let's go on to the next topic here. So, I already showed you these examples of post. So post install, just do check that you are able to access the Python and run the interpreter by hand, right? So you can, on Windows, you can use the where command. I forgot to show the Python version. So another thing you might want to check. So when you run it interactively, you saw that it was version 3.14.6. But you can just explicitly ask for the version like that to see what particular version you have. Okay. All right. So with Python installed, the other tool that you need is you need to have Git tools as well as SSH tools. And on Windows, you can get both of those at the same time by installing the official Git installer for Windows. All right, so you can get that from here. Again, these links will be in the video description, and they're also on the web page here. So the repository with the instructions should have links to all these things as well. Okay, so Windows will not have Git installed for you already, so you'll definitely have to install a Git unless you've installed it yourself. So, Python might be there from other things depending on how you use your computer, but Git most likely isn't unless you've been doing software development and use Git. Right? So here you'd want to just click on that download. I've already downloaded this here, so I'll go ahead and start the installer. This one will ask a lot of questions. Let's go ahead and give it permission to make the changes to a system. Three defaults that you need to check is that you should go ahead and override the default branch name when it asks you and use main for your branch name. That's becoming standard now, but apparently that's not the default in the installer. Make certain this is the default, but double check that it is going to install OpenSSH for you, so you have the SSH tools. And also, it's best, even though you're on a Windows system, to disable these line ending conversions. This can cause you problems when you're doing assignments in some of our classes here. Okay? So back to the Git installer. I'll try and quickly come to those. So I'm going to select all the defaults for everything else. So I'll let it install it where it wants. I'll have it default to using. This is another one that maybe I should have mentioned. In the next video, I'm going to show making a commit and doing it by hand. So you might want to change that unless you're familiar with using VI or something else. Or if you're planning on installing VS Code, which I might show later on. But I'll go ahead and change this to Notepad for the default editor if you're using Git from the command line. And this was the first one I talked about. So let's go ahead and use main for the default branch name for new repositories. Keep that one. Make certain that it is using the bundled OpenSSH for this. And this one here, the line endings, it can cause you problems if it for some assignments that we do for classes, if it changes the line endings from Unix style into Windows style, then things will stop working for you when you try and submit your answers and have them graded. So you want to avoid having it convert those line endings for you. And I believe the rest of these you can just accept the defaults and let it install there. So I'll let that go ahead and install. This shouldn't take too long. Okay, once Git and SSH tools finish installing, you'll be done. We don't really need to view the release notes. So the next thing that's mentioned in the instructions for setting things up is a couple of tests you want to do. And you absolutely do not want to skip doing these tests, nor skip doing the configuration of Git at this point. Okay, so let's start by, let's just check that Git and SSH are there. So this is similar to what we did when we checked Python. All right, so I'll open up a terminal. Again, if you had a terminal open, you want to close it off and open up a new one, because the part of the installer will update your path to make certain that these Git tools and SSH are in there. So I should now find that Git is installed in this path, program files Git. And we now have SSH there. And we can check the version of Git. Git uses a flag -- versions. So another hint about doing stuff in the command line is, exact spelling and capitalization and the number of dashes. So some flags sometimes use just a single dash, sometimes they use double. So you need to use -- version. You want to get the version for Git, but SSH uses a -V, so that's not a lowercase v. That's something different for secure shell. Capital V should tell us which versions. Both of these, though, are confirming that not only is it installed, but the command is actually running. I should be able to use these commands, so we should be fine now to do these. Okay, so also. Right. So also make certain that you do configure your Git settings here, right? So in the next video after this, I'll probably also continue on from this, showing setting up an SSH key. But basically, you need to set. Oops. I made a typing mistake. Oops, sorry. Let me switch back to my desktop here. So. So Git has some configuration options. When you first install it, you won't have your user name and email set, but you need to set those. Those are basically required. There's other Git configuration settings that you might need to set. For example, if you didn't change the auto conversion of your character return line feed for Windows, you might need to reset the core auto character return line feed to false if that's reading true right now. But we do want to config your user name. So I'll set my name as ETMU student, but of course you should use a hint on this. You really need to use the name as it appears officially in your MyLeo Online gradebook. Okay, so whatever your name is, as it's registered officially for classes, use that. First name, last name, or first name, middle name, last name, so that it's easier to associate work you commit to GitHub with the actual person in My Leo Online that we're giving assignment credit for. Okay, and should also config your email. So this email address, again, this will be in another video later on, but when you're using GitHub, GitHub has a email associated, a primary contact email associated with your GitHub account. So this needs to match whatever email you use for GitHub, right? So if I was using my Leo Mail email, I might set my email here to something like that, you know. So Leo Mail emails are something like first initial, last name, and then leomail.etmu.com, okay? So again, if you do those successfully, you might want to check using the git config list to see that you do now have your username and email set. Okay, and continuing on here, I decided that I'm going to stick in here talking about setting up a GitHub account. Okay, so for most of our classes, when you're doing Python programming, we are going to have a setup. We're using something called GitHub Classroom. So you do have to create a GitHub account for yourself, and then set it up so that you can authenticate to your GitHub account using a secure shell public-private key pair. All right. So a word about GitHub. So I won't show creating a GitHub account. I'll just sign into mine using my student example email that I'm using here. All right, but so you should sign up. Like I mentioned before, you'll need to give it an email and other information to get your free account. The GitHub accounts are free. I recommend if you don't have a GitHub account, go ahead and use your Leo Mail email address. You can change that later on if you need to use your free GitHub account for once you get out into the real world for your job or something. Otherwise, if you already have an account with an email, you can use a different email usually for classes, but make certain that your email setting in your config is the same one as you set for your primary email for your GitHub account. So I'm using that email. So actually, I forgot. So I didn't match correctly. So I'm using a different email than like a Leo email address. So I'm actually going to go ahead and change that here. So what I was talking about, if you look at your settings, so here, if you go to the right-hand side, you can pull down all the stuff that you want about your GitHub account after you've created your GitHub account, including getting your settings set up. And my basic primary email is going to be listed here under emails under my settings. This one here. I'm going to copy and paste that. So I need this to be the same as what I have here, right? So I'll reset my email for my git config to match what I've got on my GitHub account. All right. So the next thing that we want to do, go down to here and show these, is we need to, after you have your GitHub account created, we need to set up a secure shell key pair, private key pair. Right, so we need to follow these instructions, right? So part of the SSH tools is there should now be a command called SSH keygen, which should be also on your path. So if we run that, it will generate what's known as an SSH key pair for you, right? So accept the default. So this will be your default key pair. The name of it is id_ed25519. That's in the .sh subdirectory under my home directory here. You most likely, unless you've done this before, want to go ahead and accept and create that default with that name. Also, this is mentioned a little bit in these instructions. It's okay to use an empty passphrase. Passphrases give you an extra layer of security, but you don't need those really for these secure shell keys for our class assignments. Okay, so if you know what you're doing, you can add a passphrase, but I recommend people just leave those empty until they know what they're doing. So once you do this, this creates a public key called this ID ed25019.pub and a private key pair associated with it. Okay, so I need to copy this and back to my GitHub account. So again, back to my settings. I'll go ahead and show you again, opening up my settings for my GitHub account. But the setting we need here is we need to add a secure shell key, right? So I've already got some here. In fact, I forgot I had done this a little bit before practicing. I'm going to get rid of this one here. So I'm going to add in my new key that I just generated here. So there's several ways you can get that from the command line. You can use type or you can use cat if you're on a Windows or Linux system. I need to show the contents of the public key here. So that's in my .ssh. The Windows uses backslash instead of forward slashes. For even though it's showing it the other way here, you really need to have the slash like that. Right. So, and again, spelling, punctuation, capitalization all matter when you're doing stuff in the command line, right? So if I had done the wrong type of slash, this might be confusing for you. You'll get an error message about the syntax of the command is incorrect, right? So anyway, this is my public key. So, if you don't want to do stuff on the command line terminal, you can open this up. So for example, if I open up my file browser, and if I go to my home directory is in users ETAMU student, right? After generating the key, there should be a .ssh subdirectory, and there's pub, although be careful in Windows double clicking on this. So pub is also the extension for Microsoft Publisher or something like that. So you might need to right click on this and do like an open with, and we could open this with, like just a plain text editor like Notepad. So either way, however you get this, you need to get this and copy that. So I'll copy my public key, and then we'll go back to our GitHub account, create a new SSH key, and we'll paste that public key right there in the key, right? So do give a title to remind yourself what this key is for. So this is my Win demo machine for my CSCI 233 class, maybe. Assignment key or something like that, right? Whatever helps you remember what your key what these keys are used for, what machine they're used to come from, that kind of stuff is usually what I use in my titles. And then do not skip this step. Let me close this off here. After you generate the key, it's very important that you verify that you can authenticate with that key. So do not skip this step here, right? So what we want to do is, if my key is correctly up there, again from a command line, if I do SSH to get@github.com, it will use your default key, the one we just generated, to see if it can actually log in. To see if you've correctly got a key registered for your GitHub account that can authenticate with that, right? So you expect that the very first time, whenever you try and authenticate with an SSH key, Secure Shell will recognize that you've never accessed that site before. It will give you a message. This is perfectly normal. If you're sure that that's the place you want to connect to, you want to go ahead and say yes. It will remember that as a known site. You won't get that again. Only the very first time you try and connect to a new site. So you might have to hit return once or twice here, but then this is what you're looking for, that you successfully authenticated, right? And so let me show you. If I do this again, GitHub is now a known site, so it won't warn about not knowing the authenticity of the github.com. It'll just say you've successfully authenticated, okay? And then let's give an example of this failing, right? So if I was to do regenerate a key here, If I save it over the old one, over the original one I just generated, this is going to generate a new key. Okay, so I'm overwriting. I'll use an empty passphrase. So now I've actually got a different key than what I've got registered up here on GitHub. So if you ever do trying to authenticate, and you get a permission denied, that means something's wrong. You don't have the key up here yet. You've got the wrong key. You've got a mismatch. So I'll go ahead and add that key here. You can't actually modify a key. So since I lost that key forever, this one's no good anymore. So just go ahead and get rid of that one. And just to show practice again here, we'll go ahead and add it. Give the same title again for this new key and add it in there. Right. So now that I have that in again here, the second one that I just generated, I should hopefully, let's see if it'll authenticate. GitHub is already a known host, so it'll remember that, but it'll be using the new key here. I should be able to successfully authenticate like we just did. Okay, at this part of the video, I just showed installing Python and getting Git tools and SSH setup and your GitHub account for Windows. So I'm going to jump over and show the same stuff, but on a macOS system. So if you don't need for macOS, you can go and maybe skip over down to the end here where we talk a little bit about using like a VSCode for an editor. Okay, so let's go back and look at installing a Python interpreter, but we'll do this for the macOS system. So it might be a good idea to go ahead and check whether you have Python or not. So we'll do that first, but if you don't, we do recommend using the brew package manager on macOS. All right. So first of all, if you're not familiar with using a terminal on macOS, so here we're back to, I'm going to be using these instructions again, and these links will be in the description for the video. We'll show setting up Python on macOS. If you're not familiar with using a terminal on macOS, there's a link here for a couple of ways to get it. I usually just personally just open up the Finder and like search for it. Usually, and also, since I need to use it relatively often, I might go ahead and just drag it down to the what's Mac call this, the bar down at the bottom with all your applications. Let's go ahead and start our terminal here. So on Mac and Linux, it's the which command will search to see if there's a program by a particular name on your path. Okay, and path is always going to be an environment variable that lists the locations on your file system to search for applications to run from the command line. Okay, so yeah, so this is a clean install of Mac here. I was going to mention, let me pause for just a second. I mentioned this briefly at the start of the video, but if you are using macOS, probably anything that's in a 2020, like a version 11 to 15. I think I've got like a Sequoia here that I'm trying to use in this demo here for the video, right? But these should be fine, and I think hopefully the instructions will be mostly the same, even if you have a slightly older version of macOS here. So yeah, before we check, let's check. So I started checking to see if we had a Python. Another thing to look out for on Linux and Windows systems is it might not be named Python. It might be Python 3 for version 3. So let's just check that. So yeah, we actually do have a system installed version of Python 3, which might be usable. And this was on the default. But yeah, again, kind of like on Windows, this is just a stub to the thing. This probably would work. You could probably go ahead and use the Xcode setup like is mentioned here. But I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to show using the brew install. I'm going to try that here instead. Okay. Okay, so I'm basically going to be following these instructions here for installing Python on macOS. I'm not familiar with macOS, so we'll see if this works or not. But basically, reading this, you do need to have a little bit available already before you can use the brew. So in particular, you need GCC, right? So I think looking through this, I'm going to try this first here, that now you might be able to just run this and not actually have to install Xcode itself, right? So if this, Xcode is an IDE, which is useful to use on macOS. So if you're a macOS person, you might already have it. If you do software development, or if you don't, you can try and install that. You have to have an Apple account, I'm pretty certain, and be logged into your Apple account to install Xcode from the App Store. But let's go ahead and try from the command line. We'll try adding the. We'll try getting what we need by just doing this here. See if that works or not. So we'll do the Xcode select install. We'll pops up something. We'll go and install those and agree. Let's see what we get here. I'm going to pause here. I don't think it'll take that long, but we'll pause here while it's downloading stuff. Okay, that took a little bit longer than I would have thought to get those Xcode select tools installed. And let's check, but that did finally finish. Let's check if that was enough. Like I was saying before, I think these instructions might be a little bit off. That might be all we need, but we'll check if this isn't all we need. We're going to have to go back and install the full Xcode. So, we want to go ahead and go to this next step here to get brew installed. In general, brew is a good thing to have on macOS. It's a package manager. So instead of using the App Store, it's more like a Linux sort of package manager. So you get the more open source sorts of things on there. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to copy and paste this command here. I know I probably should have made this when I was talking on the Microsoft Windows. Whenever you see stuff like this, usually the $sign is meant to be like your command prompt. So you shouldn't copy that if you're copying and pasting a command to run here. So we're going to go ahead and get this. Get the whole line here minus the $sign. For Mac, it's what Alt C. Let's see if that works. No. I'll just copy it with my mouse and paste it. There we go. So we'll run this. So assuming we've got the prerequisites we need, that should install the brew installer for us. Let's go and try this. So we'll need our password. So yeah. Looks like it's installing stuff here. Go ahead and pause while this is finishing up. Okay, so we're done installing brew. I do think that worked. So yeah, you might only need these Xcode select install here. Your mileage may vary, so you might have to fall back and install Xcode to get the prerequisites. Like it says here, remember we mentioned the path. So if you want to have brew in your path, you will have to. So I seem to already have it on there. Let's see here. So so I guess that's if you're running Z shell. So you may or may not need to run these here. Just a second, let me check something. So yeah, we seem to have brew in our path, but just to be safe, I'll go ahead and do these. So just to explain what these are doing, this is just ensuring that there's a file called zprofile, right? So this will append nothing onto the end of it. Oops. Just a second. Okay, sorry about that. I had to figure out how to copy and paste here. It's a little bit annoying in my environment here. I don't have easy way to copy and paste since I'm using a virtual machine. But anyway, so the normal stuff should work. So on Windows, we need to do like a Windows C to copy, and then I still have that on. V should paste it on there. So we'll echo that out. So that should create that file if it's not there already. We'll do this. This will actually add this line to the end of the zprofile. We'll copy and paste that. And then we need to do this to presumably basically ensure that this stuff happens locally as well here. So not certain if any of this is necessary or not, but we'll go ahead and do it. So copy and paste that in there. All right, so oops. Open my terminal back up here. Sorry, second. Okay, yeah, and again, sorry about that. So, you know, just check that you do have brew as your path, and you might have to add those, like I was saying here. Okay, so let's move on. So that should be enough to allow us to do like a brew install, right? So I wanted to show setting up brew in any case because brew is a good thing to have on a macOS system. So this gives you access to a Unix, Linux-like package manager instead of relying on the App Store. So there's lots of stuff that you're going to be able to get as a software developer or a programmer through open source and other kinds of sources that you wouldn't get through like an App Store. So let's just check final step here. So if I want to get the Python from the brew, we can do the brew install Python to run the brew package manager. And let it install Python for us. So again, this might take some time. I'll go ahead and pause and let this run here. So as you can see, if you answer yes to proceed with the installation, it is going to install at the time of this video a version 3.14, which, you know, again, the version that you had by default, depending on which version of macOS you're using, might not be the most recent. So this is a good way just to ensure that you have a good version of Python available here if you're running a macOS system. Okay, so there, the brew install of Python finished here for me. So like we said here in the instructions, we want to go ahead and confirm which version we have and whether we have that available on our path. So we can look at which Python. So also remember that often on Unix, Linux systems, and macOS systems, it's going to be called Python 3. So we're going to look for Python 3 in this case. So it's still the user bin Python 3, but in this case, if we run it, yeah, we ended up with a version 3.96. So let me check something there. I'm not certain. So we're not getting the version that we want to. We're not getting the version that was downloaded from the brew install here. So. Okay, so again, this is a path issue, and you know, I didn't see this. Don't know if this is in the instructions or not on the site I was using about installing Python. So yeah, it probably does mention this. So we're gonna have to modify our default path in order so that we find the Python 3 that we want instead of the default one, which you can see when we ran this was a 3.9, which is really too old. We don't want to use 3.9 here. So so it's in user local op Python. So user local bin Python 3. So for me, I probably want a command like this in my my path here. So we can just run this directly on the command line. So again, I'm going to do a copy paste, copy that, paste it in there. So now I should have user local bin at the front of my path here. So now if we look for Python, we'll find that that's the one that's finding. If we invoke it, hopefully we'll get the 3.14 version that we're wanting to run with here. So right, this is the right one. This is kind of what you want to see here. So we're using the 3.146 version. So yeah, we really need to add that into our path if we want to make this permanent so that the next time we close this up and open up a new terminal. So I'm going to do a similar thing to like we did before. I'm just going to echo that out to my Z shell file here, profile. So here, just thinking about this, this is similar to what was being discussed in that link that I gave here. So I'm just going to append that line to the end of my Z profile so that it will. Oh, sorry, I got the wrong one here. Let me try that again. Just a second. Okay, trying this again. So I'm going to echo that export path, putting the user local bin to the front of my path. Basically, this is going to append it to the end of my Z profile here. So I'll try. I need to add that to my instructions for the tutorial for getting Python set up for MacOS. Okay, yeah, I probably just mistyped my password there. So once you get in, again, let me show you a couple things real quickly about your GitHub account. So on the upper right-hand side here, you get access to kind of the information, this part of your GitHub account, your repositories and organizations and things. So in particular, your settings. So like I was mentioning, if you look at your email settings, my primary email is this. So you really should have this matched here with your global config. So I'm going to reset my global config to have my correct email there. Like that, all right? So now if I look at my global configuration, my user email is set to the exact same one that's on my GitHub account, all right? So what we need to do in order to do assignments for this class, we're usually going to be using what's known as GitHub Classrooms. So this will basically set up a repository for you that's shared or actually owned by the organization for the classroom, but you're given permissions to create repositories and be able to push your code up there so it can be evaluated and graded. Okay, so in order to do that successfully, you have to set up what's known as a secure shell public-private key pair. So if you never worked with secure shell, this is the basics of it. So we need to generate a public-private key pair here. So this is showing generated it on Windows, but you should be able to do the same thing, steps here on macOS. I'll run the keygen, SSH keygen command. So here you should accept, it's going to generate the private part of the key pair into a file called id_ed25519 in a subdirectory called .sh from my current home directory. You want that there, and you want it with that exact name for your default key that you use when you're authenticating here. Right. You can leave the passphrase empty. Passphrase will give extra security, but if you're not familiar with them, just go ahead and leave it empty. So this generates the private key in the id_ed25519, and the public portion of this key pair is in the file with the same starting name .pub though. That's the public part of the key, right? The public part of your key really is public. It doesn't matter if people see that, but the private key, you should think of that as like a password. So since that's kind of like a password, you can add an extra layer of security by putting a passphrase on there so people can't actually see that unless they know the passphrase and use your private key or authenticate with your private key. So now we've generated that, we need to, if I go back to my GitHub account, so again, I'll remind you, we need to go to our settings. So on the upper right hand side, if I go down here and select my settings, in this case, we want to add a new SSH key here. So we'll go and look at our SSH and GPG keys. All right. So I've already got a couple here, but we need to add a new key. But we need to get this public key in there. So you can open that key up. So we go like a file browser. You'd have to open that up in like a plain text editor. I should probably, again, I'm not as familiar with using macOS, but if we browse our file system, you need to browse to your home directory. Let's go ahead and look at that. I'm going to have to remind myself how to browse files in Mac OS. So yeah, by default, if you look at the, what's it called, the Finder, this is kind of like your file browser, but it's not going to show your home directory here, at least not easily. So we need to, let me pause a second and remember, we need to add it in there. It's probably, I think it's a setting, system setting on Finder to say, show my home directory, so I can look at that in there. So let me pause here. Okay, yeah, I had to Google it, so I couldn't. It's been a while, I can't remember. So I usually go to my Finder and look at your settings from there, and there'll be settings so that you can display your home directory, so it's kind of hidden from you by default. So if we look at our sidebar, so this is the stuff that's showing on your sidebar here. So we need to be able to see our top level home directory on the sidebar there. So I'll go ahead and view that there. So that now we can see this here. So by default, also, you can't see hidden files. Let's change to list view. So yeah, and that might be another Finder setting. So yeah, I mean, generally, if you're a developer, the operating system hiding stuff from you can be problematic. So usually I do want to see the file name extensions and. So let me pause here. So I need to find the settings so we can see hidden directories. Okay, yeah, hopefully there's an easier way to do this. So you might have to run a terminal command to permanently set this on, but you should be able to use like a command shift period. Let me just try that, see if that works. So we do a command shift period. Yeah, there we go. So, or like a command right arrow, that'll show our hidden files here. But yeah, so we should be able to look in our SSH directory, and there we can see the public and private key. And I can open that with like the basic text editor app. If I need to get that key to copy it. So since macOS makes it so difficult to see your hidden directories here, I might just do that on my command line. So there's my key. I need to copy and paste that here. Or alternatively, I just might go back to a terminal and just cat that file out. So if I do cat displays the contents of the file. So if we cat out the public key. So either way, however way you get this, we want to get that and copy it. And we need to go back to our GitHub account and create a new key. I'm back to my GitHub settings for my SSH key, so I want to add this key in, paste that key in here. You should give it a meaningful name so you remember what this is for. So this is my Mac demo, like for maybe the CSCI 233 class assignment key or something like that. Just something. So usually it's useful. You might usually have a different key for each machine, so knowing kind of which machine that key is authenticating from, and then in general, like what kind of assignments or classes or things you might need it for, that kind of stuff. So once we add that in there, we should be able to authenticate using GitHub here. So if we go back to our instructions here, do not skip this step here, right? So once you think you've added your GitHub key, you should confirm that you can authenticate with it there from a terminal again. Okay? So if we do SSH to git@github.com, the very first time you do this, this is normal. When you're first connected to a site, it's not known by Secure Shell. So it can't verify the authenticity of the host here. So you have to verify that, that is the host that I was attempting to connect to. That looks correct, right? So if you're really paranoid, you can use this other information to really verify it. But so that's probably correct. That is the host that we want to. So from now on, if we say yes to that, it will remember that is actually a known host. It won't ask that for you again, right? So if you successfully authenticate, you should see the message that you've successfully authenticated, like we just got there. Okay. And like I was saying, if you do it again, you'll see it doesn't say that it doesn't know that host, right, and prompt you whether that looks correct or not. It'll just authenticate directly if it's a known host. So you won't have to go through that step again of validating the authenticity of the site. Okay? So if your key isn't correct, so for example, if I was to delete that key or regenerate it, let's go ahead and just regenerate a second time so that we can get some practice on see it again how you add a secure shell key to your GitHub account, right? So if I use the same default name and override it, so I'll go ahead and override it. So I'll generate a new key with no passphrase. So this is actually a different public key if you examine that closely from the one that we had before. So now if we try to authenticate with that, we'll get an error because this doesn't match any key that I've currently got registered with GitHub. In fact, since I overwrote that, I pretty much threw away. I deleted this key. There's no way to recover it, so I'm going to have to actually. This was not useful anymore. So I'm going to just delete that and re-register the new one that I just generated here. So again, I'll copy that, make a new key. Put that in there, reuse the title. So I'll make that one assignment key and add that in. So again, now that I have the new one I just generated, we should be able to successfully authenticate, hopefully. All right, there we go. So yeah, again, don't skip that step. And if you're ever having problems, so if you ever have problems, especially if you ever get messages like permission denied messages trying to like push a commit or something like that, go back to these steps, check your key, look at it on GitHub, and make certain you can authenticate before you try other stuff. All right. Okay. So yeah, with that is it for setting up the tools, the Python, and getting your Git and GitHub account set up. Okay, so at this point in the video, then I'm going to switch back to talking with Windows. Although the rest of this, where I talk a little bit about text editors, will apply both for Windows machines and macOS system machines. Okay, so as a final thing for this video, I'm just going to briefly talk a little bit about using a text editor, a programmer's text editor for your class assignments. So this section is going to actually apply to any operating system, Mac OS or Windows or Linux. If you're already familiar with using a text editor, you'll need a text editor in order to write Python programs for the class you're watching this video for. You shouldn't use like basic Notepad. You definitely don't want to use something like a word processor like Word Doc or Google Docs, even though it can load plain text files. You need a programmer's text editor, which will give you features like it'll syntax highlight for you, and it'll help you format your code correctly and things like that, right? So if you don't want to use a full-blown IDE, there are lots of choices. Notepad++, Sublime Text, TextMate, or just to mention a couple if you do a quick Google search. I think all these are cross-platform, so you can probably use these on macOS or Windows. I'm not 100% certain, but I believe so. If you don't have a preference or already something in mind, I would go ahead and recommend just getting VSCode. I probably would be using that for the examples in the videos for the class that you're going to be taking here, where you're doing Python programming. VSCode is a little bit more of a full-blown integrated development environment than these ones that I previously mentioned, but it does give you a text editor. The other thing about this is that also, if you don't want to do like get commands from the command line, in order to create commits and push them up for grading, you can use the VSCode has a built-in Git revision control, so you can do it from the VSCode GUI to manage your repositories and create commits and things. So whatever you're using, you can go to this link here and download an installer. You might be able to use like brew install for Mac. You could probably use a package manager to install VS Code. I'm not certain if VS Code is in the brew package manager or not, but these installers from the direct download from Visual Studio Code I know work as well, right? So I already downloaded it. Let me go ahead and just install VS Code real quickly here. If I remember right, VS Code really doesn't ask you a lot of questions, so you can just pretty much accept all the defaults that it'll throw up here. The location to save it and other things. And you definitely do want to make sure it adds to your path here. So yeah, I'll just leave those all defaults, and we'll go ahead and install it here. So it's not Visual Studio Code, even though it's a full-blown integrated development environment, isn't all that big, so the install shouldn't take too long here. But I'll go ahead and pause here while this is thinking. All right, so when that's done installing, I won't have it launch it for me. So whether you're using Mac or Windows, you should find it in your applications on Mac, or you should find it on your applications on Windows here. So it should show up as Visual Studio Code, and like I showed before for my Windows and also on Mac. I usually like to have this on my taskbar, whether my Mac or Windows taskbar, whatever a programming editor I use regularly. I want to have quick access to it. So let's go ahead and start it up. So the only thing I'll mention while this is starting up here is for this class, if you're doing Python programming assignments, probably all you really will need is to install the Python extension pack. Okay. So, so don't go through a little bit of configuration when you first start up. I mean, you don't really need to, give out your information about your account or stuff. Set your default look and feel. I'd really recommend not getting into AI agents unless you know what you're doing here. So yeah, I really don't want to get started with it. I'm just going to close out my thing here and close the welcome page. So the Microsoft Visual Studio Code is a full integrated development environment. It's really kind of a framework though, so it doesn't really have the things installed right from the bat to program in any particular environment or programming language. So it's what's known as an extendable or extendable development environment. So you have to actually add extensions for it to be useful. So in particular for our class, if we're going to do Python programming, it kind of showed up on the popular here, but we shouldn't end up having anything. I usually like to, get rid of a lot of this stuff here so that it's not cluttering up. Get rid of the recommended, and I wish I could get rid of the popular too. But yeah, initially we don't have actually any extensions installed. So we want to search for Python. And what you'll want is it'll probably be the first one that shows up here. Maybe not, but just check. But this one here, the official Python from Microsoft, is actually an extension pack. So if you install this, it'll actually install a couple of extensions, Python, and it will install the Python debugger and the Python environments. I don't think it'll install the extension pack, so you may want to install that as well. So let's see what we get. Oh, and I think we get like a PyLance or something. So let's so if we click on that, that'll get rid of my search here, and we can see then what it's installing for. So yeah, it actually installs 4 things. That's the extensions, but we get the Python debugger, the Python environments, and the PyLance. The one you'll mostly need for the class is probably the basic Python one. Although I'll do something real quickly here with the Python environments, I think, as well here. Once these finish installing, let me pause while it's getting these set up. Okay, so once that's finished installing, you'll get a kind of welcome pop-up. You may or may not get this error here. This is actually kind of a problem. So it didn't discover the environments here. We'll see if we can fix that. But I think this might be a Windows kind of thing of, again, the path might be having problems finding stuff here. But yeah, the output from that may not be too meaningful for you. So let me mention something. So if you look at the Python extension, like it mentions, this Python environments extension is relatively new as of the making of this video in the summer 2026. To use this, this helps you manage your different environments, which you might need for these classes, because you might need to install additional packages or things like that. And there's various ways you can manage environments, but here, as of making this video, it's not enabled by default, so we're gonna have to do something specifically. This is mentioned down here in the README for the extension pack for Python here. So we need to find the setting and set it to true. If this is enabled, we should see another thing on the left-hand sidebar here to manage the Python environment with this. So if we look at our settings, we want to search for that, Python use environment extension. Let's go to our settings. So use environment is enough to find it, right? So we'll go ahead and enable that there. Okay. So there, notice when we do that, we've now got an additional thing on our left-hand side. The Python environment is active, right? So see if we can see anything. So what you kind of want, if you were following this video, is we want it to find the version of Python that we loaded in our local Python, right? So it did actually see that, right? So I don't know if you can see that well in the video that I'm making here, but that was the location of the 3.14 that I installed in the first part of this video directly from the python.org, okay? So, so I think it did correct itself. So this is kind of what you want to see, is that the one that we're actually using as our default is now is this one. That's the same one from the app data local Python installation, right? So if it found that, I can directly make certain that it is set as the default. Right? So that's helpful. That means that, let me make this a little bit bigger. If I open up a terminal in VS Code, you can open up command line terminals. By default, so by default it is using like one of those DOS terminals. Is that true? No, it's using PowerShell. So sorry. Remember, I again, you probably don't want to use PowerShell unless you're familiar with PowerShell. So let me pause a second and remember the setting for that for my Windows user. Okay, actually, I just noticed there's probably a way to set what is the default if you open up a new terminal here in VS Code. So just to go back and do what I did there, I just opened the terminal, and it seems to be opening up PowerShell by default. But yeah, you can't actually pull this down and say, I don't want a PowerShell. I want like a regular command prompt. So this is more like the old DOS command prompt here. So I've actually got two running now, but I'll just go back and use the command prompt. So again, unless you're familiar with PowerShell, I would recommend just using the command prompt. So here, if we look for Python or Python 3, so I mentioned this on my Mac video. So in Mac and Linux, you might not actually have a Python, so you might have to use a where or a which to look for Python 3. In Windows, it usually gives you both Python and Python 3, although these are probably just symbolic links to the same one, right? But this is using the one, I believe. We see both of these, but yeah, if I run Python from here, or Python 3, whichever, it should be picking up the 3.14 that we installed, which is what you want, right? So just confirm again that you're getting the right one. So you'd want to try that in macOS. In macOS, I don't know, like I was showing in the video, whether it will pick up that export to get the user local bin at the front of your path. So if it doesn't, you might have to do some configuration for it to find the correct one here. So that allows me, though, to run Python interactively. There's other ways to run Python here and do things. But we can run Python commands. We can use, Control D actually doesn't work in this, so we'll have to use like the exit to exit out of there from an interactive section. But then this quickly allows me to use, like I could create a Python script. I'm currently in my home directory, so I'll do like a new text file. I'll go ahead and save it. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. So let me do that again. Create like a new text file. Hit Control S to save it. I'm just going to save it in my top level home directory here. I'm going to call it, give it the extension PY, so that from now on it'll know that it's a Python program, a Python script file here. So if we save that, notice we're now getting syntax highlighting because we've got the Python package installed. Notice on the bottom right-hand side here, this is kind of important. So this tells us which, what type of a file, what type of programming language is being syntaxed and detected in the file here. So we're correctly using Python now. Right? And that should allow me, so I should now have that file, hello py, down here in my command prompt. So I should be able to run that. And there we go. So we ran our first program that we created here using Visual Studio Code. All right. So the point is that I mean, you can use any text editor if you're already familiar with one. If you don't have a preference, go ahead and use maybe give Visual Studio Code a try. So there's a lot more features, and you'll probably see some of those in the classes. But it's definitely a good one for Python and other programming languages. So, all right, so yeah, that's it for this video. Just to kind of quickly summarize, by watching this video, you should have gotten some idea of how to get a good Python interpreter installed. Remember, you do need to have version like 3.14 or maybe newer in order to do assignments for this class here, right? So make certain you do check which version you're using, which Python interpreter you're using. If you have something older than that, you might need to follow the steps in here to update. The other thing is you do need to have Git installed, and you need to have a GitHub account created. You need to have that secure shell access and authentication set up so you can authenticate to GitHub from your local system in order to be able to create commits and push them up to get them graded for the assignments in this class. All right. So yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know, or let the class TAs know if you're having any problems. We'll be happy to work out kinks for you and getting things set up. Otherwise, yeah, that's it. And I will hopefully see you guys in class then.